Welcome back, everyone, to day number 5 of our summer meeting here at Colonial Downs as we get set a 9-race program for Tuesday, July the 27th. Jason Beem, I'm the track announcer here, and joined by Jessica Paquette, who's our track analyst, handicapper, paddock aficionado. Jessica, how are you?
I'm great, Jason. How are you?
Good. How is the paddock down there? I've never gotten to be at the paddock for a race at Colonial Downs.
It's beautiful. And the
Yeah.
thing I like most about it, it was thoughtfully designed. It's a really horse-friendly paddock.
Okay.
There are some paddocks, I'm not going to say which
Yeah, yeah.
ones, that I'm just waiting for a horse to wind up in a fountain. Um,
Boy,
and
you're really vague now. Now I don't know who it is.
but this is just really, equine safety obviously
Yeah.
it was at the forefront of the design.
Yeah, and when you get 14 of them in there, especially 2-year-olds, I imagine it can get a little bit chaotic in there. In
Sure.
fact, that was one of the things you would point out a lot during the earlier week was kind of who was taking it easy, who was looking good. I mean, with 2-year-olds, I imagine that's a big part. I mean, I guess with every race, you're looking for that, right?
Well, I feel like that's what I should be offering to the people at home. Anyone can read past performances, even if you don't know how, you can learn.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I can offer some insights about who's handling the atmosphere well, who looks good, who's disappointing, things like that.
Well, let's look at the past performances and talk about the 9-race card, which kicks off in the first race, 16,000, non-winner of 2. And we start on the main track, which I don't know if we've started on the main track, but race number 1, Jess, who you got? A field of 7.
I went with number 5, Rioja Palace, getting a little bit of a class test here. MC Reardon started her training career training horses at Suffolk Downs. I'm really familiar with her. She does a good job and has continued to since Suffolk has closed. This is a horse, I like that it's his first try against winners, as I hammer home every time. It's one of my favorite angles. However, I'm not sure how much the off track moved him up last time. It was a big step forward for him. He does have a lot of wet track influence in his pedigree. But we'll see if he can, be as effective over what looks like it'll probably be a fast track.
Yeah, I remember that race because he kind of dug in, like he had to battle early on and disposed of a rival and just kind of kept on going. It was an impressive effort down there at Tampa on June the 30th. Wanted to mention number 2, press snooze rather, for Michael Tomlinson, who had a win on opening week and a third. This one dropping a little bit, but dropping from turf. Sometimes the class levels at turf are higher. I don't know why that is. Like the price, like a 20,000 turf might play like a $15,000 or $10,000 dirt, but this still to me does look like a class drop. And this horse, when running at Colonial Downs at a cheaper price, albeit on the turf, did win. So maybe a return to that form here.
Sure, that's one I used as well. Similar theory.
Yeah, Joe Rocco got a win on the first week. Jess, your picks for race number 1?
5, 3, 2, and 6.
Real quick before we move on to race 2, I should mention we did have a Belterra Park winner on opening week shipping, and I always love to follow kind of where horses come from, and it's nice to see Old River Downs, as I call it still, get a winner, and they have the number 6 All the Diamonds coming from an allowance race over there.
I didn't give that Belterra form enough credit for sure. That horse ran great.
Yeah. The second race on the card, we are on the turf. We're on the inner turf for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going the flat mile distance. And speaking of tracks with fountains in the in the paddock, Classical Magic comes from Gulfstream Park off a really, really narrow defeat. That was against non-winners of the year, though, and this one more so against open $16,000 runners. I feel like non-winners of the year, sometimes those races can be really not great.
Yeah, for sure. They can be non-winners in like several years.
Yeah.
They wind up in there. I think she looks very tough. She has a lot of early speed. I think Paco will be a really good fit for her, getting her engaged early out of the gate. I am trying to beat her, and that's with number 7, Over to You, for Neil Morris. 2 wins in a row, trying to notch her 3rd win of the year. I like how she's really just rounded into form. I also like the class and the pedigree on this horse. If I had to pick a horse I'm more excited to see in person all week, this is probably the number 1 horse.
Interesting.
The sport horse pedigree of my dreams. I'm always looking for the next one. This one's high on my list on pedigree alone. Include out of a with approval mare. I would bet everything in my bank account that this horse can jump.
This meet's going to cost you money by the end.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. And I know her only try over hurdles was not that great, but she got over a few fences at least there before she packed it in and pulled up. So she at least is capable of going over an obstacle.
Your picks for race 2, Jess?
7, 2, 6, and 3.
We get back on the main track for race number 3. As I said last week, 7 furlong dirt races here at Colonial, some of my favorite. I did look up the name for this number 2, Decoupage, who was beat by Rather Nosy, who Rather Nosy is in on Monday's card.
Yes.
And so if you're on, and Virginia Beach actually raced last week, who was second last time out. I think finished third on opening week for the Orange Silks Blue Dot Country Life Farm. But Decoupage, Jamie Ness has had great success here over the years. Only started 2 first week, had a second place finish, but I got to think a major contender in here.
Jamie Ness has success everywhere he ships them, and I think this one looks very tough here. Most accomplished horse in the field. Last effort was a little bit average, but her form this year has been mostly competitive. I'll give her, kind of the benefit of the doubt off of that last race. And again, high percentage barn, gets Paco aboard, checks every box.
This was one of those races where, as I went through, I thought you could kind of make a case for most of the runners. The only one I kind of struggled with was Palm Girl, and I'll probably put her in the winner's circle for that.
But 1,000%.
I thought the other 5 all looked legitimate.
I agree. I think number 1 Moon Save really looks good here too. A lot of ability from limited starts. The inexperience is always appealing to me. Mm-hmm. So, at a certain point, you've seen everything a horse has to offer, right? And this horse, maybe you can still see her moving forward a little bit.
One of the things me and Merv spent a lot of time the first year was trying to find trends, whether it's on the main track or the turf. And I really thought on the turf, you could truly win from any position. It just depended on how good you were and also how the race shaped up. The dirt, after that first long shot one wire to wire where nobody closed, I really thought that was going to be kind of how it was. And then we saw the West Point horse, Sequist, rally from way, way off of it. And so I have a sense that, you can win from pretty much anywhere on the dirt as well.
Yeah, as far as I saw, it looked like it was playing very fair. And circling back to that West Point horse, Sequist, I wonder if she goes to a stakes race next time. I mean, really impressive debut effort from her. And Gina, half sibling to
Mystic Guide,
to Mystic Guide. I think she's probably going to be the best of the field, just not yet. This is a horse that needs to go long.
We saw that a couple of times. There was a couple races where there was one in particular, I remember it was a 9 horse that was a favorite, but where you just said, look, the distance is not enough. This is not a horse that wants to go 5. And one was dirt, one was turf.
That turf filly in particular. So I was, she was one that I kind of had this note, look at her in the paddock, because I think she's the best horse in the race. And I think 3 years from now, you'll look back and she'll have a real race record. But she walks into the paddock, legs as long as I am tall and this long back. And there's no way that horse was going 5 furlongs. Yeah. And then I pointed out this little Ghost Sapper filly, kind of short back, short coupled, a big rear end. Sprinter every which way. I mean, I like big butts, and I cannot lie.
That was a Jackknife, right?
Yeah. Jackknife, who was just sprinter body all every way you looked at her, and she, ran like she looked.
Yeah. Last thing I want to mention on the third race is Labrodi, who we saw down at Tampa. And this horse looks, I think I even said in the call, has not been involved at all because it was just so far back. This was a 5 furlong race. The horse was 11 lengths behind, and that might even be, I thought it was more than, I think I said in the call 15 or something like that, and rallied up the rail to win. It was, it was just kind of a noticeable debut, I thought. And so I'm really excited to see what Labrodi can do with some experience, and Horacio Caramanos, MC Reardon, you mentioned earlier on the show. But I thought a tricky little race, because I think people are going to see a smaller field, and by Colonial standards, 6 is very small. And I think people are going to try to make a stand there. And I don't know that it's the easiest race to make a stand.
No, I think it's a really competitive race for sure. My top selections are 2, 1, 4, and 6.
4th race on the card, and $60,000 allowance for 3-year-olds and up. They'll be going a mile and a 16th on the turf course. And where did I have a note here? I wanted to talk
the about workout on number 1.
That might have been, I know. Yeah. The one is who I had highlighted, just because I highlighted Raylu, but the horses run, those are 2 really, really tough races. And then, that's a pretty odd workout time. Which
I have some questions.
It's got to be wrong, right?
It has to be, right? I might be able to run 3 furlongs faster than that.
I can't. How far is 3 furlongs?
3/8 of a mile.
So no, there's no way. There's no way.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But that's not good. If that's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll ask Breeze about that when we get into the office. Still the greatest clocker nickname of all time. But that horse, like I said, I mean, those are tough races over at Churchill. And this horse was by no means embarrassed at either one of them, beating 3.5 lengths against some really nice allowance types.
My top selection here is number 4, Gold Money, an entirely different animal, seemingly, on the turf. Yeah. Fresh off of a maiden win, overcame a lot of adversity, I thought, last time out. And I think any sort of repeat of that effort will land him right in the winner's circle for win number 2.
I wanted to touch a little bit on toward the outside, the 7 Toe Curl and Kiss, who's one coming down from Pimlico, had such a good race at the optional 32 two starts back, and then last time just didn't run at all. But the falling way behind, it was one of those races where somebody kind of opened up, they went fast, and just this horse just never got running. I almost kind of like that though, because I think it might scare some people off of a horse who I think kind of belongs.
Sure. And, this is a horse, great pedigree. I'm a big Curlin fan. They do absolutely anything. I didn't use this horse, but I can see how you can make a case for him.
Did you use the 8 at all, English Tavern?
I did not.
Okay, yeah, just another one who I thought on his best day could maybe get in at a bit of a price. Who did you go with in that fourth race?
I went with the 4, the 1, the 2, and the 5.
Race number 5 begins our 50-cent pick 5. It's at 6 furlongs on the main track, so 3 main track races on the Tuesday card, which is an anomaly, at least since I've started coming to. There was a really funny horse in here, the 4 Miracle Bobby, who's been rained off the turf 5 times in an 8-race career.
But that one turf race was not good.
It was the worst one of the horse's career, and so I'm like, why do you guys want to get back on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Miracle Bobby wants to do at this point.
Clearly, the connections want a turf.
Maybe, or maybe they're hoping that they get rained off because the horse clearly can't pick up its feet on the turf.
That's true. Where did you end up in this race?
I went to the outside with number 10, Chestnut Hill, an interesting first-time starter. This barn, Susan Cooney's been quite live to kick off the season, and I think he looks pretty conservatively spotted debuting for a tag. Definitely one that warrants a good look in the paddock. First-time starters I always take with a little grain of salt. I want to see them first. They can pleasantly surprise you or they can disappoint you in person.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to see the 3% with first-time starters, but she is a little better. She's 7% with debut maiden claimers. And the other thing is, I mean, I think that'll lend to your price, right? Because a lot of people are going to see a barn that doesn't necessarily fire that much first time out and stay away from it. And as you said, I mean, we've had a few races, and I think this is supposed to be how it is, where your top pick is something you make 2-3 days in advance. It gets race day, and be it a body type or anything else, like, you're going to change your opinion, as most horse players are, from 3 days to the moment of the race.
Sure. I mean, I hope so. I can't just go out there and be like, and stick with it.
Yeah, no, then that's what we want to, the kind of information we want to try to give on these things. We just want to give a general preview of the card and discuss it. Your picks for the 5th, Jess?
10, 4, 5, and 8.
The 6th race on the card, 5.5 furlongs, turf sprinting, fillies and mare maiden special weight. And, had some, I thought, pretty nice horses showed up in this one. We got an LNJ Foxwood firster. They will send a handful each year. They paid a pretty penny for this Tappet filly. Brittany Russell, someone that hits a lot with first-time starters. I love Merv, but I think this horse is going to take some money at the windows.
I completely agree, but there's also a little bit more interesting, an interesting note to this horse. LNJ Foxwoods, Jamie Roth also bred this horse. So it looks like they bred her, sent her through the auction as a youngster. She was sold, and then they went back and paid 6 figures to get her back. Yeah. So it doesn't seem like the best economic decision unless this horse turns out to be really good, which she very well might. Hope springs eternal with a first-time starter, and certainly has some pedigree. Again, that was a big 6-figure purchase. Like $350 that's not a budget Tappet.
No, and the other thing to defend Merv's morning, I mostly just want to give Merv grief. I didn't actually think it was that bad of a line. Is with a 14-horse field, the money just spreads around. You have Gravitron, who's been very, very consistent out in post number 7. There's a number of horses here that have had some pretty decent experience so far. Dynamite Gift just missed at Churchill last time in 100,000 maiden special weight. Where did you go on top, Jess?
I went with number 1 by the hour on top. Okay. I think that intent is enough for me. If they were willing to pay $350 to get this horse back in the LNJ Silks, that's enough for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see if this horse has speed, because obviously breaking down on the inside, a lot of times you'll hear people say in sprints, that's not a great post. I feel like when horses here show good speed and get out there, it's actually quite beneficial, I guess, which is the case anytime it's a sprint. But we've seen a number of inside posts win in these races. I guess it's not something that scares me away, I should say.
No, I'm not easily scared.
I wanted to give a little mention to the 13-star rules for Kenneth Huffman, who ran in a turf sprint here in a maiden special weight last season. Ran pretty good, was a big, huge price, and has been knocking on the door on dirt. Just seems to be a horse that, I don't think has the ability to win a race like this, but with the equipment change, and you see some really, really good works since that equipment change has been made. I thought maybe one that could get up there. And Brett Calhoun, who I think we had one on yesterday's card, if I remember correctly, but he shows up with the 14 Liam's Nessie. I know he's got some of his big horses training here, right?
By my standards, I believe,
Yeah.
is that Colonial. I'm looking forward to going and doing a little horse stalking this week.
Yeah. I want to say that he's got another one of his really top ones out there too. I'm forgetting who it was, but I know Jeff's kind of the everything guy at Colonial. He was saying he said it was kind of a stop and watch type workout when he saw that horse go. So, Jess, your picks for race 6?
1, 4, 7, and 9.
Staying on the inner turf, or going back to the inner turf, I should say. We were on the outer turf for the sprint. The general consensus is that if it's a route, it's inner turf, and if it's a sprint, it's outer turf. But sometimes when we get the longer, we will do a couple mile 3/16 turf races. Those will be on the outer turf. But the general rule is 2 turns inner, 1 turn outer. But we're back on the inner for an optional claiming a $40,000 race in race number 7. Another big field, and I thought again another situation where there was a lot of arguments that could be made.
I think this is a really competitive field, a lot of different ways. I went to the inside with number 1, Street Copper. I think he ran better last time than it maybe looks first glance on paper.
Mm-hmm.
His form's been super consistent this year. You see a lot of italicized names in his past performances. And for those of you new to handicapping horses, that means the horse won next time, which can be an indication of quality of field. I like that he has tactical speed. He's sort of knocking on the door of that breakthrough win for the year.
Yeah, ultra consistent and kind of has his level, right? I mean, like he's pretty much been at or around this level for most of the last, year.
Yeah, he looks really, really well meant here.
Wanted to talk about a couple of horses toward the outside that I thought deserved a little bit of mention. King's Honor being one of them, who throw a couple of really big clunkers in a stakes race and a 50 claimer 2 and 3 back down in Florida. But the last 2 starts in the Mid-Atlantic were both wins, and both with Forrest Boyce on board, who seems to have a good handle with the horse. And as I said, Brittany Russell, just a really high connection or high percentage barn. Always someone I'm interested in if there's a price to be had there. I think the Stidham horse, the 10 Singapore Flash, is going to take some money just because of its Stidham and the fact shipping from New York. Did that one show up anywhere in your top 4?
Right in my second place position. Yeah. A little bit of class relief has been keeping good company, coming in fresh. Yeah, this is a live barn. And Sheldon Russell has also been off to a really sharp start this season.
Your picks for the 7th, Jess?
1, 10, 7, and 8.
The 12, I should mention too, a little bit, the Dane Kabisky horse for Joe Rocco comes in with 2, not only straight wins, but open length wins, one on dirt, one on turf. Just seems to be in very, very good form right now. So I thought worthy of a mention on the outside. It seems like outside horses sometimes get forgotten.
A little bit, yeah. Well, these big fields, you go through and you make your opinions, and then you go, oh, wait, there are like 3 more horses still here.
100%. I have been guilty of that. And the other thing too is like, depending on where they are in the program or the past performances, like sometimes if they're on that 3rd page, like a lot of people just forget about them flat out. And so it's a weird thing that happens in the world of handicapping. The 8th race, we start the late daily double, 5.5 furlongs. And this race on the outer turf, I mentioned Dane Kabisky as the outside horse in that previous race. Well, he's got the inside one here. This horse has never won Rustler, but was promoted via DQ. And so I thought we talked earlier about horses that have won and sent back to the maiden ranks. This is kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah, that is sort of an interesting thing. I think this race kind of shakes out to be pretty wide open. I like number 3, Inhalation, making only a 2nd stateside start. That first race at Keeneland, kind of really tough field. Did not run very well, but the blinkers go back on today, and it looks like that one good effort, one of the better efforts overseas in Europe, came with blinkers on. So I like the equipment change. I like the recent bullet workouts. I know we've talked about, it's interesting to see that when a horse has kind of a disappointing effort, then they go back to the drawing board. They obviously made some changes. Maybe this horse was working in blinkers, and that is kind of, moving him up a little bit.
If I remember correctly too, the horses that ran 2nd and 3rd in that last race, you can see they're italicized, but I think Gear Jockey actually came back and won, not next start, but yesterday or this past weekend at Saratoga.
Cool. That's good to know as well.
That. And so obviously a live race and the equipment change and stuff. I have the sense, we talked about Michelle Lovell a little bit yesterday with Just Might. I have a feeling Michelle might have a pretty decent week here. She's got a number of horses in, obviously her barn centered over here. She's got the 7 in Sky We Trust, who's been, primarily dirt sprinting. The one turf route was not terrible. Not bad.
It was okay.
And so I don't know. I think her barn might make some noise here this week. Jess, where'd you go your picks wise in race number 8?
3, 11, 4, and 2.
We talked about yesterday, bottom level maidens finishing up the card. We got that again, but we got them turf sprinting this time, and another big old field of 14 carded by the racing office. And it's a different handicapping chop you have to use because you have to get a little more creative, right?
I like these races so much. Now, a lifetime spent at a lower circuit track gives you a real appreciation for some of these bottom claimers, wherever the bottom is at any track. And I'm going back to one of my strict rules here. Sometimes when you don't like any of the other horses that have raced before, go with the first time starter. They have not disappointed you yet. And that's why I went with a little bit of a long shot with the 11 Our Strong Vows, really bred up and down for the turf. Wicked Strong, I think, will turn out to be a nice turf sire, being by Hard Spun out of a Broken Vow mare. I am a huge Broken Vow fan. The dam was precocious. She broke her maiden at first asking, so a little bit of precocity here in the paddock, in the pedigree, and can't not getting Caramannos aboard here.
I always look for, in the horses that have experience, I always want to look for, in these cheaper races, somebody with speed, just because a lot of these horses don't have a passing gear. And so sometimes if you can find yourself in front or close up, it maybe puts a horse who's going to be a long price into contention. There was a horse who ran opening week that's in this race, Dancing in Fire, who took some money, was 5-1, but was actually like 3-1 for a lot of the betting period. The late money went elsewhere. I think this one just found itself. It was a big full field, kind of found itself between horses, if I remember right, down the backstretch, and then very, very wide, and just didn't really run on. And the race before that was pretty decent, finishing second on the main track. And so I thought maybe a little bit of one from a sneaky trip look was the 4 Dancing in Fire. But your picks for the 9th and final on Tuesday, Jess?
11, 3, 2, and 4.
We will be back with racing again tomorrow to close out the week, racing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 3 days a week, 1:45 p.m. Eastern at Colonial Downs. For Jessica Paquette, I'm Jason Beem. We'll see you guys back at the races. Good luck today for this Tuesday.